It's obvious you'll learn a lot of useful spells as a student at Hogwarts, whether you're casting Incendio on yourself after finding a spider on your arm, or casting Crucio on the Slytherin that stole your lunch money. Spells help wizards accomplish many things, but there's one student in particular who never really cared about spellcraft: Betty Crocker. You see, rather than learning spells, Betty was focused on the profitable world of organized crime. Whether brutally ending the lives of poachers and selling their hauls, or operating the biggest drug lab in the northern Scottish Highlands, Betty didn't have much use for spells. That being said, today, we're taking a journey with her to discover how many spells it takes to beat Hogwarts Legacy. For the sake of this video, any form of magic requiring Betty to utter an incantation will be considered a spell. So things like Incendio, Accio, Depulso, you get the point. That means silence magic, like the Disillusionment Charm, or Alteration magic in the Room of Requirement, are not going to be considered spells, and as such, their usage will not add to the spell counter. Oh right, you guys can't actually see the spell counter yet. Do you mind pulling that up for us, Betty? Oh, great. Okay, I'll do it myself then. Accio! Anyway, the challenge starts off with Professor Fig forcing us to cast some magic, but thankfully, the basic cast does not require incantations, so it doesn't count. But sadly, the game very quickly forces you to use a spell shortly after entering Gringotts, which is where you learn Revelio in one of the vaults and are forced to use it. Twice. Yeesh. You're then led into a cave where you need to cast Revelio and Lumos to proceed. I did try walking around and seeing if there was a way I could get out of casting the spells, but unfortunately no. The game then forces us to use Protego to block a sword swing, and again, and again, and again. But after that, I was able to beat them all with just basic casting and dodging. I was a little disappointed that I already had to use so many spells, but I guess I should have been expecting it since, I mean, it's Harry Potter. Magic. Yeah. Anyway, moving through the cave, we're met with another puzzle requiring Revelio and Lumos, and during the fight, we're forced to practice Stupefy, which you can only cast by first deflecting an attack with Protego, which means 6 spells had to be used for this fight. That was pretty much it for this cave, so with the intro of the game out of the way, we set off for Hogwarts, and at the end of the night, Betty gets placed in
Hufflepuff!
the next morning. We quickly pop some Claritin. Betty, I don't think that was the Claritin. Anyway, after meeting some of our fellow classmates, we tried to go about our business, but are rudely interrupted by Professor Weasley, who unfortunately makes us use Revelio to grab a field page. Now this is the part of the game where I started to gain some semblance of control over spellcasting. We start off by going to Defense Against the Dark Arts class, where we learn Levioso and are told to use it on a dummy. No way to skip this unfortunately, but then we're placed in a duel against Sebastian. Now at first, I was able to beat him with 3 spells used, but I was thinking, nah, no way. I can do better. After a few retries and experimenting, I was able to knock him off the dueling platform with just 2 spells used. Now, despite the massive knockback you get from knocking a levitated enemy down, I don't think it's possible to clear this section with only 1 spell. I even tried seeing if maybe Stupefy would provide more knockback, until I had flashbacks of the statues and remembered that Stupefy automatically means you're casting 2 spells. After whooping Sebastian, we're off to Charms class where we learn Accio. And you know what that means? Yep, we have to use it. So many times. I did try seeing if I could walk off the platform and maybe glitch out the quest, but no, you seriously are forced to use it here. But, I mean, hey, at least we destroyed Natsai in Summoner's Court. After that, we're given a side quest where we need to go collect 2 field page guides, which of course means 2 uses of Accio. I did try seeing if this could be skipped, but sadly the main quests have a tendency to force you to complete side quests before proceeding. After collecting the 2 pages, Professor Ronan teaches us Reparo, and suggests we go repair a statue. But no more spells. The next part of the game has us meet up with Natty and follow her to Hogsmeade. We need to visit several shops and grab items for school. No spells need to be used here, although we do get our actual wand here. Of course though, the peaceful trip is ruined by a troll, which luckily we don't need to use any spells to fight it, just lots of basic casting and dodging. After beating it though, you sadly need to cast Reparo 7 times because I guess the other wizards around here are incapable of doing it themselves. Afterwards, we tried meeting up with Natty in a nearby pub, but yeah, my game crashed here for no reason. Anyway, after a short talk, which I totally didn't skip through, we're back off to Hogwarts to sleep for the night. Once we wake up, Professor Hecat wants us to learn Incendio, but like always there's a catch. We need to complete 2 rounds of Crossed Wands, which is basically just a secret dueling club, and we need to complete a round of spell combination practice. Crossed Wands was relatively easy. There were a couple of barrels we could throw with ancient magic, which by the way actually breaks spell shields. When I ran out of barrels, it was pretty much up to Sebastian, my dueling partner of choice, to break their shields, which honestly took forever, but hey, he was trying his best. Once that was done, we needed to do spell practice. And yes, unfortunately, this is forced. The first practice set makes us use Accio, then the second set makes us use Levioso, and finally, the third set makes us use both Levioso and Accio. Now, I already mentioned at the start of this video that silence magic like the Disillusionment Charm doesn't actually count towards the spell counter, but I still wanted to try sneaking into the library without it, just out of curiosity. After a bit of goofing around and failing, I actually was able to burst in there without getting caught. There is a suit of armor blocking our path here, and I did spend a good while seeing if I could jump around it, but ultimately I was just forced to use Reparo to get it out of the way. Luckily, that is all we needed to use at this part of the game because this antechamber just has statues, which can be beaten with just basic casts and ancient magic. Like, pretty much everything else in this game. After we're done, we head over to Herbology and Potions class, but no spells are needed there, so skipping that. Our next step is to meet Natty in Lower Hogsfield, where we need to help Nora Treadwell defeat Dark Wizards. No spells required here, of course, since we can, just wait for Nora to bust their shields or do it ourselves when the ancient magic meter is full. But sadly, after that, we are forced to do this Merlin trial, which luckily, it is the only one in the game that we are forced to do, because if I had to do all of them to beat the game, I wouldn't even be making this video. I tried messing around a bit to see if there was a way to bypass it, but you do need to use Incendio a few times here. Anyway, our next spell use comes shortly after you travel with Anne to Azkaban, which, by the way, I thought this scene was really cool because I had no idea that the different houses got special cutscenes like this. Anyway, we have to go check on something for Anne and are met with a locked door. I spent quite a while running into random corners and running around the entirety of the cave seeing if there's just some way I could glitch out past the door, but nope, I had to use Accio 6 times here. I thought we'd be good for a while here, but Jackdaw meets you outside of the tomb and gives you another quest, which forces you to learn Expelliarmus, which you can only obtain by casting Incendio 5 times. After finding some poachers and spiders to use Incendio on, we quickly learn Expelliarmus and return to the Forbidden Forest with Jackdaw. You need to open up the entrance to this tomb with a password and are interrupted by goblins, but like usual, no spells are required to beat them. But if you've seen the Harry Potter movies, or even just read the books, you know there's spiders in the Forbidden Forest. And you know what spiders do? They make webs. Yeah, there's a web here that we have to take down with Incendio. There's no way around it, sadly. Later in the cave, you come across a platform that you need to pull towards you. I of course tried seeing if I could just jump to it and pull myself up, but it's too far away. So instead, I just tried seeing what the minimum number of spells needed here was. It was a little confusing figuring out where to go, but I decided to just pull myself forward and we got through here with only 2 spells. I did run into another set of these platforms and was about to facepalm until I realized you don't even actually have to use these ones. We made it through to the next area, fought some spiders, and more statues. After getting through the chamber, we finally unlock talent points here, and I immediately spend one on Swift, which basically lets you perform a very short apparition when dodging. I also got a couple of plants and potion related talents, and we carried on. Professor Weasley introduces us to the Room of Requirements here, where we learn Evanesco, and to be honest, at the time I didn't realize that Evanesco is actually silent, so I spent like 10 minutes trying to glitch my way over the chairs, only to realize I never had to do any of that. Anyway, afterwards, we learn a bit of alteration magic, and Betty starts putting together the base of her new drug lab. Shortly after, we sneak into the Undercroft with Sebastian, where he teaches us Confringo, which we for some reason have to use 3 times or we literally can't progress. Now Professor Fig walks with us to the map chamber and we meet Professor Rackham, who gives us a trial that we have to do that we aren't a high enough level for. And let me tell you, this is the part of the challenge that got kind of annoying. So you know how field pages, trials, and all those good things give you lots of experience? Yeah, well, a lot of those are off limits to us. So are most of the side quests in the game. That being said, a lot of my time in this challenge was just spent wandering around the map trying to find quests I could complete without spells and some random enemies to fight. To start off, I opted for finishing my rounds in Crossed Wands, which was a little difficult since it was a 2v4, but we did pull it off. After that, I went off and got my broom in Hogsmeade, which opens up balloon tracks for us, which gives us a bit of experience when you complete them. Once I hit level 11, I went off to do the trial, and Professor Fig tries tempting us to use Petrificus Totalis, but nope, I'm not falling for those Jedi mind tricks. After defeating the goblins the loud way, Professor Fig is kind enough to use the Lohomora for us so we don't have to open this door. Not that we could do it anyway because we don't have that spell yet. Then we enter the trial, and this is where the magic starts happening. Or not happening, depending on how you look at it. So there's an Accio platform here, right? Well, normally what you would have to do is pull the platform towards you. Pull the platform towards the pillar, and then pull the platform towards the endpoint. That's 3 uses. But if you drag this platform towards these stairs at the just right distance from this floor, it allows you to shoot Accio at the endpoint right away, allowing you to skip that second use of Accio. Now, I know I just shortened that for you with editing, but dude, I spent like an hour trying to figure out how to angle the platform so I could get away with it. Anyway, this of course opens up a magical archway, which you're intended to continue using Accio to get past. However, if you just jump while tightly turning here, you can skip at least one more use of Accio. Sadly, you do need to use Accio up ahead because there's an ancient magic reservoir that you can only access by standing on the platform, and then you need to use 2 uses of Accio to get this platform across this gap. After fighting a few statues, we then came across another Accio platform. I messed around quite a bit here trying to see if there's a way to skip it entirely, but you can't. Basically, the most optimal way I found to do this is to jump as far as you can to land on the platform, pull yourself towards this anchor, Accio this platform, which pulls you both closer together at the same time, hop on it, and then Accio one more time to get out. After that, we head through a doorway and are presented with 2 healing potions. And you know what that means? Boss fight time. I'll be honest, I was really afraid of this boss because all I remembered from my first playthrough was the fact that it has a ton of spell shields throughout the fight, so I was thinking, well, this is gonna be where the spell counter skyrockets. To top it off, the boss can hit you in the middle of your Swift ability, and it is pretty hard to accurately dodge his charge up attack. I also had a little mishap here. But if this fight showed me anything, it's that maybe I should be a little bit more optimistic, because we actually got through the fight with 0 spells. Basically, all you really need to do is be really careful with your dodging. You have a couple of things you can throw here with Ancient Magic, which do allow you to get a couple of breaks on his charge up attacks. Other than that, it's just a game of dodging, basic casting, and using Ancient Magic once your meter is full. After that, we check the pensieve and return to Hogwarts. Now, waking up this time, I wasn't concerned with the owls I received or the quests I was tasked with fulfilling. No, I had a different goal in mind. It was time for Betty to begin the setup. I'm sorry, I'll stop at that joke, okay? But basically, I sold stuff, okay? And I got gold, and the potion lab got set up. Kinda. Good enough. It kept us going for a while. But seriously, I'll be honest and say I didn't bother with plants and potions at all on my first playthrough. Like, I threw one cabbage and I was done the rest of the game. All I cared about was learning the cool spells. That being said though, coming into this challenge, I was completely surprised at how absolutely overpowered they are in this game. Anyway, next quest is Beast class, but other than meeting Highwing, there's nothing to really note here. After that, we talk to Gladwin Moon, who teaches us Alohomora, and expects us to use it even though he could easily open the door himself, so annoying. I wanted to get this Arithmancy door open for the extra loot, and well, it was a little bit goofy. We then have to sneak into the prefect's bathroom, and that requires another use of Alohomora, which again, Gladwin is a professor. Why can't he do all this nonsense? We then sneak into the hospital wing, and by sneak, I mean make as much noise as possible. Once that's done, we pop potions to complete a quest, enter the potion classroom, and learn Depulso, and we're ready once again for the main quest, which is talking to Lodgok. We find him in an inn near a bar counter, and of course we do the only reasonable thing anybody would do when walking near a bar counter. Anyway, after some talk, we head off to a cave to find a goblin helmet. I knew as soon as I was heading into this cave that I was going to have to use some spells, and sure enough, the very first thing we're met with is a sealed door that can only be opened by using Lumos to attract a moth. Or is it a butterfly? I don't actually know, but whatever. We have to drag it over to the door and plop it in. After that, you're met with another one, only this time none of the moths are on the door. You have to get them all yourself. 1, 2, oh look, the last one is behind a door. How nice of them to force us to raise our spell counter again. With that door open, oh, right, these guys. Luckily though, there are always exploding barrels when you fight these things, and they're especially useful because you can hit multiple at once if they're lined up for you to do so. And oh boy, another Lumos puzzle. This time, you need to power up a key by placing a moth in its slot, which is annoying because it forces us to use Lumos at least one extra time. I tried seeing if my basic cast would push the key, but you are sadly forced to use Depulso on it, which lifts the platform that gets us to the second moth. Once we grab that one, we only need to cast Lumos 2 more times to open the door. I did come across another door that looked like it needed Depulso, but luckily you can actually just skip it by breaking this crate, which breaks a hole in the floor. After fighting another horde of the undead, we're doing, you guessed it, another Lumos puzzle. This was by far the most annoying one to figure out an optimal solution for, and after about an hour of looking around and restarting my game when I messed up, I finally figured out that the best way to do it is cast Lumos on one of the butterflies, place it on this slot, grab another butterfly and put it on the key. You then need to cast Depulso twice on the key because doing it just once doesn't raise it up enough. Very quickly grab this butterfly with Lumos and bolt over to the butterfly over here, and you're good because the last butterfly is actually just waiting for you up here in a little hole. It's just not good that this puzzle made us use so many spells. After that, we discover the helmet is stolen, so we need to go whack some wizards and a troll, apparently. Well, hey, this is actually the first troll we ever fought, so it does give us the ingredients for invisibility potions. After returning the helmets, we're finally met with a couple of quests that we're a high enough level for right off the bat. Deke shows us how the knapsack works, which, just in case you don't know, basically allows us to kidnap animals anytime we want. This is a huge step forward because it allows us to easily farm gold and gives us a way to get those last few bits of experience we need for quest level ups. After getting the knapsack, we head over to where Sebastian is. We have to search for some clues, and as soon as I saw that pop up on my screen, I was like, oh great, I have to use Rebellio again. But actually, no, you can just get through here with no spells. Back at Hogwarts, we attend astronomy class where we look at stars. Yeah, I'm not much of an astronomy guy, and this playthrough didn't change that. But anyway, shortly after we follow a meet in search of an old astronomy table, we're for some reason very quickly met with a spiderweb. Now, I did try wildly jumping around for a long time, trying to see if I could just hop over and skip this part, but ultimately I did have to use Incendio here. But once we got through that, we were able to unlock astronomy tables all over the map, which gives us a decent chunk of experience for each one completed, further allowing us to level up without the need for spells. Of course, we learn a few more spells here, which, well, I just learned them because I assumed the story was going to force us to use them later on, so I just did it now to get it out of the way, you know. Anyway, next we follow Natty near an old castle, because Highwing got captured by poachers. Now, this part was pretty interesting to me because there were a couple of funny spell skips here. To get inside, I jumped around for a good 10 minutes to climb up this debris here. I was then met with a depulso lever, which I did find a tiny little glitch here that lets me jump up a little higher on top of the doorway, but sadly it didn't get me anywhere, so I had to use depulso on the door, followed by Wingardium Leviosa to move the crate, and then Levioso to levitate it so I could climb up because it wasn't big enough. Very soon after climbing up, you're met with a wooden pallet blocking your path, which luckily can just be destroyed with a basic cast, but then you're met with another crate. A crate that needs Wingardium Leviosa to move. Or does it? Well, this is the part of my playthrough where I figured out these crates can actually be pretty easily moved in various ways, either through basic casting or just pushing them. Since we couldn't use our basic cast, I just did it the old-fashioned way. And now, we come across the door we need to open so Natty can get inside, and it's a depulso lever again. Or is it? Well, no. For some reason, this lever in particular can be pushed with your basic cast. Normally, this lever takes about 3 uses of depulso to fully raise, but if you just spam the basic cast button as fast as you can, you'll eventually raise the door high enough. So that's the only spell you actually need is Accio to pull out the doorstop. Now, why do you need to pull out this doorstop? Because Natty is a freaking idiot and doesn't just rush under the door when you've got it open with your basic cast. Like, what are you doing? It's right there. It's open. Go in. Anyway, Alohomora is needed up ahead. I did try seeing if I could jump around the castle walls to avoid it, but no luck. After that, it was just a straight shot up to the roof to rescue Highwing. Next up, we're of course XP locked from our next quest. I tried to do multiple side quests here, only to realize I was locked out of doing them, because one needed Incendio, and the other needed Rebellio. I did eventually find a quest where I could take out a goblin camp and return a cart, and that gave me just enough experience I needed to level up. At this point, our lab setup was pretty good and we somewhat consistently had a full inventory of plants and potions. I had been upgrading the workstations and even got some composters, which gave us a bag of fertilizer to double the output of some of our potted plants. By the way, can you imagine how bad it would smell having an open-faced composter in what's basically your living room? Anyway, off to Rookwood Castle, where we absolutely demolished some goblins because I was no longer afraid of having to sparingly use my plants and potions. No spells needed until after you enter the trial within his castle. Now the very first spell I use here is Wingardium Leviosa to move a pillar so I can climb on it, but I did learn in the very next section, this box is possible to move without Wingardium Leviosa. So basically, the next part is the same thing. You need to move a pillar to open up the next path, and I stood on it and heard it moving just a little bit. So I started dorking with it, I started trying to push it, and I realized the basic cast actually very slightly moves it. After a long time of shooting it, we eventually got it to budge just enough for us to squeeze through, and we carried on. If only I realized this sooner so I didn't have to use that spell back there. We do have another puzzle room up ahead, and having just learned that I can push these pillars, I was like, oh sure, I can just do it again. Well, not in this room. You see, you basically have to push this box through the archway and then bring it back up the stairs so you can actually climb it. I spent a long time knocking it around, and at some point it actually glitched through the stairs, so I had to restart. I did it again, hit, I knocked it off, pushed it through, and then I realized I had no way of pushing it back up the stairs. So we do have to use Wingardium Leviosa here, which I guess luckily you can hold an item as long as you want with the spell, so we only need a single use here.
Oh shit, here we go again.
He got absolutely obliterated by our plant's potion combo. Just like last time, you don't actually need to break his spell shields like you do with normal wizards and goblins. In fact, the Adurus potion actually helps protect you from all of his attacks anyway. With all of that out of the way, we go back to Hogwarts and sleep. Waking up, we go off to find some stuff to do for experience, and something a little funny happened. I actually had a quest for rescuing someone's dad who was trapped in a goblin camp. Well, I went to go do it, and I found the guy and everything, but we needed to give him his wand so he could actually open the door to his cell, and, well, you need to use a spell to get to his wand. So, sorry dude, but you're on your own. The next quest is investigating a place called Horntail Hall, which is basically just a secret dragon fight club. We're forced to use Alohomora here to grab a dragon egg, and also Accio to release the pin on the dragon shackle so we can rescue it. But after that, no more spells for this area. Then have to complete an assignment for Professor Weasley here, which unfortunately makes you use 2 uses of Revelio, but we do get our only source of silent combat magic, transformation. But the only thing this really helps us with, honestly, is turning the zombies into extra exploding barrels, and considering you barely run into them, well... Anyway, now we're off to a goblin mine with Lodgok, which very quickly enforces you to use Incendio. You then need to use Accio for this platform. I tried jumping over it, I tried using Swift to apparate to it. Nothing. But hey, I was able to shorten this down to 1 spell. Normally, this platform requires you to use 2 uses of Accio, but if you stop and think about it for a second, all you need to do is pull it precisely into the center, jump over to it, and then you can jump over to the other side without needing to pull it back and forth. Next spell used is Incendio to power a boiler, or, well, whatever this thing is. Then we need to pull a lever with Accio to open a door. After beating up some goblins, the last 2 spells used here are Incendio and Accio again to pull down a lift. Moving on, experience locked as usual. Running into quests I couldn't do, as usual. We meet with Sebastian again to go explore a goblin mine and are very quickly met with a crate that we need to levitate. I tried for a while just using my basic cast to push it as well as pushing it myself. I even got Sebastian to help me, although he very quickly regretted it. Anyway, the reason this doesn't work is because A, the little ledge at the top of this hill prevents the crates from moving further, and B, even if there was some insane pixel perfect way to push it up without magic, it doesn't look like the crate is high enough to help you climb up. After that, we very quickly find a bridge that needs a use of Reparo. You have to fight some spiders here, and of course, you already know what that means, spider webs. There's also an Accio crate here, but do we actually need it? Nope. You do need to remove the spider webs, unfortunately, but you can avoid using levitation on the crates by simply casting Confringo on the webs higher up. The next part of the game has us enter what's basically Hogwarts Legacy's version of the Deathly Hallows story. No spells needed here until you pick up the Elder Wand, which forces you to use Bombarda. You can very easily defeat all the enemies here without spells because none of them use spell shields. It was actually a little nice too because the Elder Wand's basic cast is understandably buffed through the roof. I tried rescuing a unicorn at this point in the game for some experience. Yeah, needless to say I never got it. Some of the beasts require spells to catch, which is why I mostly just stuck to hunting for Puffskeins, wherein I needed money and experience. We meet up with Sebastian again, and the first spell we have to use is Incendio because of a spider web. Just kidding, you can actually hug the wall here to walk around it. As for Sebastian, well, I'm sure he'll figure out how to get around. The happiness of that spell skip was very short-lived though, because you do need to cast Bombarda up ahead to clear some rubble. There is a door that needs to be opened by hitting 3 buttons, and one of those buttons is hidden behind spiderwebs. Although at some point, I caught a glimpse of the white's targeting outline, and I was like, wait, you can actually hit it without moving them? And yes, you actually can. Kind of. It just doesn't actually activate the button, so yeah, we do have to use Incendio here. Later on, a troll barges in and wrecks our way up, so we need to use Reparo to fix it. And then next up is a crate, which was very easy to push, and we actually got it all the way up the slope this time, and we were able to climb up without levitation. You do need Bombarda twice up ahead, once to clear a path, and once to remove debris in front of a door button. Of course, I tried seeing if the door button could be spell skipped by jumping around and trying to shoot it from above, or in between the cracks and the debris, but sadly, no. Getting close to the end of the game here, we've got another goblin mine. There is a boiler here you can use Incendio on, but it actually looks like you can just skip past it. Luckily, you can just do the same thing here as earlier and get it precisely in the middle and jump across to... Oh. As I was saying, get it precisely in the middle and jump across to avoid a second spell use. Another Accio platform up ahead, but unlike some of the other Accio platforms, this one has a slope to it, which allowed us to very easily apparate across it. And by very easily, I of course mean I discovered this by complete accident while spending 30 minutes trying to glitch my way across it. Incendio is needed here to power a lift, and now we've got a big fight ahead of us. And by big, I mean it was actually over in less than a minute because, like I said, Plants and Potions is overpowered. Normally after you finish this fight, you need to use Bombarda 5 times to bust down these pillars to destroy Ranrock's drill. Now when I first got to this part, I was thinking, what if I redo the fight and try using the exploding barrels? Well, it was a good idea, but it didn't work. However, I did notice something strange. One of the pillars was broken after I redid this fight. I thought about it for a few minutes and realized the troll can break the pillars. After leading it around for quite some time, I got it to break all the pillars, even the ones that seemed too high for it to reach. This did actually bug out my game a little bit, and it attempted to activate a cutscene, but cut it off because it realized the fight wasn't over yet. In any case, we were good to go. That's 5 spells skipped. The last few parts of the game have us going to find the final Pensieve, which needs a use of Confringo to burn some vines. We then fly off to find the Lord of the Shore, which is basically just a giant beast. He was very easy to take down with plants and potions, so easy in fact that my game nearly got corrupted, knocking out his first health bar. After that, we ride him back to the antechamber, and I guess we get to keep him in our knapsack. What is it with entertainment industries and letting little kids keep gods and legendary beasts in their pocket? Anyway, since Lord of the Shore was the main challenge here, there were no puzzles in the antechamber for once. And now, here we are, the final stretch. Oh, wait, no. We have to fight Rookwood first. Right. Gotta make sure we get a taste of what it's like dueling Voldemort before we end the game. No spells needed here, and we aren't counting the spell that Betty uses to duel Rookwood as it's initiated by a cutscene, not our own button press. After stalking up one final time, we set out for the final boss, which is very conveniently located underneath Hogwarts. This puts us through a gauntlet of goblin and troll fights, which admittedly took a while because I was trying to save most of my plants and potions for the final boss, but either way, it's not a big deal. Professor Fig is kind enough to cast some spells for us to remove obstacles in our path. You get some pretty cool scenes of the professors helping you out here, and it's actually pretty epic, honestly, but we aren't here to nerd out. We make our way over to the final area and begin the final boss fight. Unlike the statue bosses, Ranrock is absolutely invincible until the spell shields are down. I tried hitting them with basic cast, and I also tried seeing if I could reach a vantage point that would force his attacks to collide with his spell shields, but no. And also, unlike the statue bosses, you literally can't hit his spell shield with the Venomous Tentacula or Ancient Magic. You have to hit them with spells. It's forced. With that in mind, I went into the fights trying my absolute best to wipe out his health bar before he could summon more spell shields. And that's Hogwarts Legacy, beaten with as few spells as possible. Well, let's be honest, that number is a little give or take. I did want to retry the Ranrock fights to see if I could maybe deal damage faster and give him less opportunities to regenerate his shields, but for whatever reason the game didn't leave me with a save file before the boss fight, and I mean, I put in a lot of effort on this video to be sure, but there was no way I was about to repeat a 30-hour playthrough to retry one fight. In any case, I had a lot of fun with this challenge. It made me tackle the game in a different way, and it also made me realize how enjoyable it is messing with beasts and plants and potions. I'm sure when you saw the title of this video, you probably thought to yourself, why would you even want to do that? And the answer is, I don't know. I just needed a new video idea after my last video, and this is genuinely the first thing that came to my mind. If you made it this far in the video, just drop a comment saying whether you'd be interested in seeing more Hogwarts Legacy content on the channel, and thank you for watching.